Before leaving Silver City, Dipper arranged a dinner with Bootstrap and Almighty. They had just got into town that day. Her friend Kurt was also there. Kurt is going to hike the next section with her. It was Dipper's birthday. I signed the card but had nothing to do with acquiring it. We went to the Little Toad Brewery again. This time I had the New Mexico Reuben, which is just like a regular Reuben but with chili on it. I had leftover Cliff Bar for breakfast before walking out of Silver City. The city roads turned rural real fast. In California, fire danger is always extreme unless it's actually raining, and then it's dropped to very high. While I was still on asphalt, a nice lady offered me a ride to the trailhead, which saved me about 2 miles. At this unique rock cairn, I made my daily call to Julie. I was surprised how far out the suburbs of Silver City go. Today's goal was to get to the Gila River Alternate. To do that, I had to hike about 12 miles of the CDT. I chose to do the Gila Alternative because it's supposed to be epic. High canyon walls and doing hundreds of water crossings to see a landscape unlike any other. No signage, just rock cairns. It seems, unless a sign is sticking out of a rock cairn. On the PCT, we got these little black flies that buzzed around our faces just as the snow started to melt. We have them on the CDT too. Dipper says they're oak gnats, and they love the moisture around your eyes, mouth, and nose. Anyway, when they zoom around your face, you can ignore them, unless you focus on them, and then they become unbearable. Like eye floaters. Normally you look right past them until you notice one, and then that's all you can see. Of course, now that I'm thinking about eye floaters, I see them now. At the top of this sign, I found a slug. I don't know what caliber it is, but it seems pretty big. Just about 2, I got to the alternate, the beginning of which is really just a well-maintained dirt road. The road got worse as the day wore on. Doug the Hermit drove by in his Jeep. He's a local character that is talked about in Far Out. He told me I was doing it the hard way, but he also checked to see if I was okay. He told me that Dipper and Kurt were ahead of me. Just after 4, on my 8th day of hiking, I came to the 3rd natural water source, Bear Creek. I still had plenty of town water, but I could always use some cooling off. I actually followed the water for a while. It was 5 when the trail left Bear Creek for higher and drier terrain, so I sat down there, had dinner, and filled up on water. These cypress in the area have interesting bark. Speaking of bark, if you stick your nose into the cracks of a Jeffrey pine and sniff, you'll smell vanilla. As the sun was getting low, I ran into Dipper and Kurt. They had taken the brownout out of town, and they had a great campsite with room for a 3rd, but it wasn't 7 yet. When I got to the top of a pretty good climb, I had an excellent view and finally stopped. It was 8.7 on the Gila River Alternate, so I'd done just over 20 miles. I could go straight to bed because I'd already eaten. The view of the sunset was great. There were lots of stars. The spot was still pretty in the morning. There was a little climb in the morning and an even better campsite. I was going to have breakfast at the next water source, but I couldn't pass up eating at such a great view. Dipper and Kurt came by. They oohed and awed at the view and also took my picture. This sign was written by Doug the Hermit. Dipper and Kurt met him the day before and had a much longer conversation with him while Doug was panning for gold. The sign was the water source. Kurt and Dipper were there getting water. I said goodbye and thought it would be the last time I'd see him in this section. They were going to stop at the beginning of the Gila, while I was hoping to get within 10 miles of Doc Campbell's. Doc's is my next resupply point and right before the most spectacular part of the Gila and the beginning of a 7-day section. As per Doug the Hermit's sign, there were other water sources coming up. Never seen a squirrel like this. His ear tufts are cool. I kept expecting this lizard to do something interesting. Last water source on Doug the Hermit's list, I saw Dipper and Kurt for the last time in this section for real. I used the water to cool off, but I think they were going to top off. There would be no more water until we hit the Gila. It was nice to be in the forest with a pine needle floor. The final climb of the day was tough, Tadpole Ridge, which is where the last alternative from town came to meet the Gila alternative. At the top was some fencing supplies. Finally, it was all downhill to the Gila. I should mention something about calculating distances and elevation on alternatives. It's not as easy as clicking a point of interest when you are on the main route. On the main route, Far Out immediately tells you the distances and elevation gain and loss. On an alternative, all you can do is click near your little blue dot to get your alternate mileage and click on a point of interest and then subtract. For elevation changes, you do the same thing, but gain and loss can't be calculated. Just the difference between 2 points. If you click on the blue dot, you get the mileage of the closest spot on the CDT, which isn't useful unless you're on the CDT. Just an ordinary squirrel. This is the parking lot as close as you can drive to the bottom of the Gila River. It's a 3-mile hike to the river, which is 1,500 feet below on a very rocky trail. From this view, you can see the Gila Canyon, but not the river. You join the Gila where the Sapio Creek merges with it. You could hop across the Sapio, but you've got to immediately get wet to follow the Gila north. The good news is you don't have to worry about water anymore. Run out? No problem. Just stop mid-river at the next crossing. In Far Out, I counted 50 river crossings in the 17 miles to Doc Campbell. That's about 3 crossings per mile. There's an impressive cave where the creek and the river meet, and this altar that I think is used for some sort of outdoor church service. I tried to stay dry while approaching the first crossing. This is the first crossing. This is the second crossing. My pants have these little toggles so I can hitch them above my knees. Most crossings are lower than that. You notice I'm using my trekking poles? See, I can use trekking poles. Despite having 3 river crossings per mile on average, there are long stretches of even terrain with good trail. The canyon sides are magnificent. As you can imagine, the water table is pretty high, so these little ponds pop up anywhere the land is low. Frogs love these spots. I left the CDT at mile 173 to get on the Gila Alternate. When I hit mile 27, I hiked 200 miles. Since no one had made a mile marker, I did. That spot so happens to be the closest to mile 205 on the CDT. Just a couple more miles to get within 10 miles of Doc Campbell's. I set up my tent right next to the CDT. I figured no one would walk by, and no one did. Water crossing in the morning was bracing. All right, here you go. Better than coffee. By 8:05, the sun had reached some parts of the canyon, so this crossing was a little warmer. Had breakfast while leaned up against this rock cairn. I figured out on day one on the Gila to ignore far out and the USGS maps. The river moves and the trail has to move with it. Mostly you just have to trust the trail dead ends into the river. You'll be able to pick up the trail on the other side. Unfortunately, that is not always the case, so there is some route finding. There's lots of life in the canyon, so there are bones too. It was obscured by grass, but I think this was a javelina. At one point, I was pretty high up on the canyon, so I got a good view of the river. As I approached the highway and the exit of the canyon to get to Doc Campbell's, I found a hot spring noted and far out. I wish I had gone in, but it seemed like a lot of work, and I wanted to get to the trading post when it opened at noon. Besides, I knew right next to Doc's is a really nice hot springs I visited in 2001. After the last crossing, I was up on the road and walking to the trading post.
This is it. The last one.
It was only a mile road walk. Despite this, the buzzards started circling me. I passed a cool campground. I got to Doc Campbell's a little before noon and they were already open. I took advantage of all the services. Pizza, shower, laundry, picked up my resupply box. They no longer allow camping on site and not associated with the hot springs campground. The campground requires reservations, so no soak in the hot springs yet. I stayed across the street at the RV park. In the next video, the most epic part of the Gila River. Snake count, still just one. This bit's gonna get kind of old if I don't see another snake. Trail stops, Doc Campbell's, check.